A prominent Russian journalist and critic of President Vladimir Putin has been shot dead in the Ukraine, where he had fled into exile following threats. 41-year-old Arkady Babchenko died of his wounds in an ambulance after his wife found him covered in his own blood in their home. He was apparently shot several times by someone who was waiting for him in the back. Mr. Babchenko was a former soldier in the Chechen War and became one of Russia's best-known war correspondents. He left his homeland fearing for his life after criticizing Russian policy in Ukraine and in Syria. He has been denounced by pro-government politicians in Russia over comments that he's been making in social media before his killing about the Russian bombing in Aleppo in Syria and over his characterization of Russia as an aggressor towards Ukraine.
It's about finding out who was behind it. And as I have said, it's too early to say. We see simply the Russian patterns there. But any real assistance in the sense of getting successful on that and pulling it off and finding who was behind it is much appreciated. And definitely on all the points needed, we would welcome such an assistance from the credible international community, of course.
Dan Ashby now joining us live and direct from Moscow. Dan Ashby, though Ukraine and Russia are trading charges over this murder, it's quite tragically ironic that his last Facebook post, which was just a few hours before he was killed, I presume, was talking about a second life, and he was referring to an incident 4 years exactly to this day when he didn't take a helicopter ride which was shot down by Russian soldiers.
Yes, exactly. It seems like Babchenko was a man who constantly evaded death. He was a soldier in the Chechen War. He went back to fight again. He was a rifleman. He worked with grenades. And then, of course, he became a hardened war correspondent, seeing some of the most difficult scenes they were. Fearless, it seems, going out to the front to report on what he saw. But he was also seen as a critic of the government, the critic of Russia's involvement in Ukraine, and an independent voice. And now he's been shot dead. Of course, Ukraine coming out, the Prime Minister coming out and pointing the finger at Russia, saying that the totalitarian regime of Russia does not tolerate honesty and a principled stance. Of course, Russia has come straight back and said that is Russophobia of the highest order, a degree of cynicism, but just another tragic death of a Russian journalist.
And Dan Ashby, this has given critics of the Putin regime more ammunition, so as to speak, in terms of the number of such incidents that have taken place, not only in the Ukraine, but in the UK and other parts of Europe as well.
Yes, a number of Russian journalists have been killed throughout the last number of years. Of course, the most famous, Anna Politkovskaya, the investigative journalist, she looked into Chechnya as well. She was shot dead in her apartment, but she is one of many. There are reports of journalists here being attacked, assaulted, brutally beaten up, some beaten so badly they're left in comas, and of course journalists being killed as well. And there has been much criticism of Russia that it hasn't done enough to ensure freedom of speech, the safety of its journalists, that it cannot be tolerated that journalists who are simply pursuing their profession, trying to bring truth to light, are dying and being beaten up. Now, Russia says that it, of course, is not involved in any of those killings, that it wants serious investigations and has done serious investigations to find the perpetrators. But I think the number of deaths, the number of assaults, is a serious cause for concern here in Russia.
Dan Ashby reporting live from Moscow. Thanks for that.